back to Native Strength. I'm your host, Cherokee Blessed Woman Hyapatia. Many people mistake grief for depression. We can grieve over many things, not just the loss of a loved one. It's been said that grief looks backwards, while depression looks forward. So if you're sad over an event of the past, you may be experiencing grief. When I got divorced, I grieved for the fact that the dream that I had of a marriage that would last a lifetime was gone. Even though I was the one who filed for divorce, I was still sad that things hadn't worked out the way I had intended.
We may grieve the loss of a job, our chance to continue our education, or our ill health. These are losses no less valid than the loss of a loved one. The Lenape say that the butterfly is sent to comfort those who are grieving. This episode is to help you with your grief. Sometimes we may tell ourselves that these things are no big deal, that we should suck it up and get on with life. While at some point we do have to go on living, we still deserve to take time and mourn the loss of the life we had hoped to live. Grieving helps us to process the events of our life.
We may grieve over mistakes we've made in the past and fall into the trap of internally beating ourselves up. No good can come from this. We've obviously learned better ways, or we wouldn't feel bad about it. This is just another way that our internal fear feeder voices try to hold us back. Now, if this is an issue for you, I suggest you check out my fear feeder episode to find ways to overcome them.
When we don't take the time to acknowledge our grief over these things, we make it harder to accept them and go on. This is what leads some people to blame events of the past for their unhappiness decades later.
Grief means tears. We might try to hold them back, but that can lead to bigger problems. I was taught that suppressed grief can cause asthma, COPD, and other diseases of the heart and lungs. Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, or broken heart syndrome, can be deadly. You've probably heard that disease is dis-ease. When we have disease, we are not at ease. The only way to get over grief is to go through it. And that means to allow ourselves to feel the pain and to cry.
You may already know there are 5 stages to grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression or sadness, and finally, acceptance. These stages don't happen in any particular order, and we may dance around with all of them at one time or another. In fact, we may experience several of them at once. We grieve when things don't go our way, but we may be missing the bigger picture. Something that seems horrible right now may actually turn out for the better in the long run. For example, when my house burned down, it was a total loss. I was devastated. I thought I would never have a nice home to live in again. But the insurance company took care of things, and a year later, I had built a new home that was bigger and better. Sometimes we just have to be patient and let nature take its course. This can be very difficult to do when we're overwhelmed with emotion. This is another time where slowing down and practicing our Huna breath can be extremely helpful. It enables us to get out of the situation we're in just for a few minutes and catch a glimpse of what could be. Now, this doesn't mean that we deny our emotions. Remember, sometimes the best way to get over something is to go through it. So we allow ourselves to grieve, to cry, and to feel the pain. We hear our inner elders comforting us, just as a perfect, loving mother or father would. In fact, it's through our pain that we can make a stronger bond with our inner elders. The sad truth of the world is that at some point, there really is no such thing as unconditional love. Even the most forgiving spouse or parent has their limits. If someone is physically abusive, never apologizes, and keeps hurting us, eventually they will destroy our love. We can grieve over the death of our love for them.
Unconditional love really only comes from within. Our inner elders will continue to love us and forgive us no matter how crazy we get. They have to. They really don't have a choice. There's nowhere they can go. It's their job to help us on our path to enlightenment. Now they may get frustrated with us, tell us that we've made the same mistake again and that this behavior is only going to lead to bad karma, but they can never abandon us.
When most people think of grief, lost loved ones come to mind. When someone we love dies, we can feel abandoned. We experience a deep pain and we grieve.
You may have noticed that in all my Native Strength episodes, I've never really spoken about ceremonies. That's because Native Strength is about mental health, not spirituality. Funerals are ceremonies where people can say goodbye and give their last respects. At funerals, our sadness is expected and understood, but many people expect this to end the next day. We have to be patient with ourselves and allow ourselves time to grieve.
There are some losses we'll never get over, and it's not really necessary that we do. Our loved ones deserve to live on in our memory, but we do have to get on with our life. We have to find a way to cope with our pain. We all know that our grief doesn't magically go away when the funeral is over. Each Native American tribe had its own unique traditions regarding passing over to the other side, but almost all believed that the soul went on to survive the death of the body. Some tribes kept spirit bundles for a certain length of time. These were collections of the departed's personal objects that were kept in a hide to honor in a sacred manner. Usually, they were only kept for a year, and this was to let the loved ones left behind know that it was time for them to move on with their life, that this can't be something that weighs them down forever. It doesn't mean we no longer mourn the loss of our loved ones. Many natives cut their hair as a sign of grieving. Some will not talk for a period of time. When one of my medicine men died, his wife didn't speak for over a month.
I'd like to say a brief word about respecting our elders. Many Hollywood movies were made that erroneously showed natives being very disrespectful to their elders. That's Hollywood. That's not the way of our people. In my culture, the elders are served food first, they enter the powwow first, and if an elder is standing, nobody should be sitting. When I was in high school, I was in the National Forensic League. This is a group that goes to different schools over the weekends and does competitions. We do poetic readings and dramatic skits, little things like that. I had a teacher, Mrs. Fisher. She decided she wanted me to read this poem about a family that was abandoning their grandmother because she had become a burden. It was Native, and she knew I was Native. I refused to do it. She told me if I didn't do it, she would give me an F. I graduated high school in 3 years with straight A's. That's the only F I ever got, and it was on my report card. And I would do it again in a heartbeat, because I'm not going to be forced to pretend something the colonizers want to perpetuate to the rest of the world. That's not true, that's not the way it was, and that's not the way it is. So if you've seen a Hollywood movie that shows us disrespecting our elders, remember, that's not the truth. And I will stand up to my grave for that. But I digress.
Our elders have the wisdom that comes from having lived many years. Learning from them helps us to avoid years of trial and error, and the same is especially true of those on the other side. They have a vision that we can't even begin to comprehend. There are ways to bridge this gap, to talk to our loved ones who have passed. When we open up the lines of communication, we can start to take advantage of their insight. You've heard me say it before, but there really is no death, only a change in worlds. We're separated from those on the other side by a very thin veil, so it's really quite easy to talk to them. Now, this might be difficult at first if you're not used to it. Do you remember me talking about the ACA cord? It's in my Huna episodes. When we touch something, we leave behind a thin, invisible thread that ties us to that object. And the more we touch that, the thicker that thread becomes, until it's like a cord. So our loved ones have a thick ACA cord connecting them to things that they've touched frequently. If you want to talk to your loved one, sometimes the best way to get things going is to take a picture of them and place it in a chair across from you. You might want to also take items that they've touched frequently, like their keys or their glasses. These will have that thick ACA cord connection. Then you talk to the person as if they were there. Many people think we need a medium to help us make a connection to those on the other side. But it's often hard for our loved ones to feel comfortable talking to a stranger. I've found people get more intimate conversations when talking to their loved ones who have passed when they're alone. It's not unusual to grieve for our loved ones who have passed over, but this is especially true if their passing was unexpected, violent, or at a young age. These losses can be particularly difficult. Now, with so many people passing unexpectedly and alone with the COVID virus, some of us didn't get much time to process the events or to say goodbye. These circumstances make it particularly difficult to go forward with our life. And that's why talking to our loved ones can be so therapeutic, not only for us, but for them as well. Sometimes we think of our departed loved ones as being very wise and at peace, and this may not always be the case. They may have things they would like to tell us. If they passed unexpectedly, they're probably having a hard time processing the events just as we are. Talking to our departed loved ones can be therapeutic for those on both sides of the veil. When we talk to our loved ones, we imagine them sitting in a seat across from us. Remember what their voice sounded like, their mannerisms, the way they talked, and the words that they used. We imagine what they would say. In our mind, we can hear their voice. Now, since they have no body, this is how they will communicate with us. Sometimes it's easier to talk in pictures, so we may see an event or a snapshot that reminds us of something. Since we can speak out loud, go ahead and use your voice to communicate, and this will help you to subconsciously program your mind to hear your loved one's responses in words. Remember the phrases and speech patterns that they used in life, and this will help you to hear them again. If you practice this on a regular basis, it'll become easier and easier to hear them. You may even see them sitting there. After a while, you might be surprised to find that you can talk to them without having to put a chair with their picture in front of you. In fact, you may even hear their voice during the day as you're going about your business.
When my grandmother passed, I was devastated. She raised me. We were quite close. So I expected that I would be able to communicate with her on the other side, but it was not that easy. Sometimes I would smell cigarette smoke. She was a smoker, and I knew that she was there trying to speak with me. My mother reported the same thing, smelling the cigarette smoke, even though she's not a smoker. So I knew this was possible. I had been taught this, but I was having a hard time making the connection. It took a while. I worked on it, and now I can feel her presence almost constantly. When I get lost and I'm driving, she's there to calm me down and tell me it's going to be okay. When I'm going through another one of my health crises, she's there right by my side to give me advice. So I know this is possible for me and for you.
Sometimes a connection just can't be made. There are several reasons for this. Some people prefer to distance themselves from their last incarnation. They're focused on moving forward and don't want to be drawn back to the past. Others may have actually moved on to their next life. I talk more about how we prepare for this life while we're on the other side in my episode called Childhood. This is about the time before birth and the first few years of life. Every 9 months, we change direction on the wheel of life. So if something traumatic happens to us, we can predict many of the results based on which direction we're facing. And we can also spin the wheel, so to speak, to get a better understanding of how to overcome it. Now, I was taught that there is no set time in between our incarnations. We take as long as is necessary for us to process the past and plan for our future. Many religions teach that those who commit suicide are doomed to an eternity of torment. But the elders told me that the Creator is loving, kind, and forgiving. If someone has an incurable disease that will only get worse over time, or an undiagnosed disorder that would cause impaired judgment or depression, there's no punishment for ending one's life. However, if we end our life prematurely while our body is still healthy, we won't fulfill our promise to ourself. We won't learn the things we planned this time around. So next time, we'll have to make up for the lost time. We'll have to learn what we were supposed to learn before we gave up. We'll have to learn what we should have been ready for in our next life. And this can make things very difficult in our future incarnation. You can see that it's really better to stick around in this life as long as we possibly can. I was taught that any life that ends before we reach the big north wheel is considered somewhat of an abortion. In other words, we didn't really get a chance to reach our full potential. Now, the big north wheel starts at the age of 54 and 9 months. Our body is like a car. When our car doesn't run right, we take it to the shop to be repaired. When our body isn't working right, we go to a doctor. Sometimes the auto mechanic can't fix what's wrong. Our car is beyond repair, and so we have to get a new vehicle. And this is what happens to our soul when our body wears out. We get a new body, a new life. Most of the time, we aren't aware our body is giving out to the extent that it is until the end is inevitable. Death, while expected at some point, is often kind of a surprise. Those on the other side don't usually immediately go out and jump into a new body, although many past life researchers have reported some people for whom this has happened. And when it does, it usually has to do with the untimely death of a young person who has a lot to tie them to their life. These souls sometimes want to get back as quickly as possible.
So when our loved ones die, they may want to know how the people they left behind are getting along without them. They miss us just like we miss them. It's natural for people on both sides of the thin veil to want to reconnect.
Many of us may ask if we'll ever see our loved ones again in a future life. For example, will our departed husband be our lover in a next life? It's said that if we have unfinished business with a particular soul, we may plan our next life so that we'll be able to complete our task with this individual. There are some people we may have unfinished business with that we absolutely do not want to work with in a future lifetime. And there is a ceremony to permanently cut the ties you may have with a particular soul. However, unless this is done, we may find ourselves trying to work things out in the future. It may not be the next lifetime, or even the one after that. But when both souls are ready. You may remember in my Circles of Life episodes, I spoke about how a lifetime is designed to be 108 years. Now, very few of us ever make it to this age, but that doesn't mean our life was wasted or is a failure. No. Some of us can learn the things we set out to before that age. Others may find situations beyond their control have made it so that they can only go so far on their planned path. For whatever reason, many of us die in between the ages of 54 and 9 months and 108. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is considered a full life well lived, according to my elders. Some people believe we have a soulmate, one person we are meant to be with for the rest of our life. Whether they believe this is for one lifetime or many, there's a potential problem with this philosophy as it relates to native strength. We're put here to learn and grow. If things are always perfect and we never struggle, we won't learn much. It's only through trials and tribulations that we are able to grow and advance down our path. If we have a soulmate who is perfect for us in every way, that means we should never have a major disagreement or any problems in our relationship. And if this were the case, it would prevent us from learning and growing. We wouldn't learn about conflict resolution, how to compromise, how to disagree bitterly with someone and still love them. Of course, this doesn't mean that we should stay in an abusive situation. The lesson to be learned may be how to say goodbye, how to stand up for ourselves, and when to say enough is enough. And this may bring us back full circle to grief. Grief is a natural part of life, whether it's for plans that never came to be or a lost loved one. But we can keep loved ones alive in our hearts. Remember, there is no death, only a change in worlds.
I hope this episode helps you with your grief. Be sure to allow yourself plenty of time to go through all of the emotions. Thank you for watching.
Ayo, 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 ayo.